In 1954, Comet Models released their 1 to 81 scale Aero Commander light twin engine airplane model, a simple kit that came in only a gear retracted option on a stand. It was one of a small series of general aviation aircraft kits Comet offered that also included a 1 to 64 scale Piper Apache, a 1 to 88 scale Beech Super 18, and a 1 to 62nd scale Cessna 310. These kits sold well, so in 1963, when Aurora Models bought Comet Models, it was a no-brainer to keep them in production, but under the Aurora brand, which of course meant new box art. They tasked artist Mort Kunstler with the job of creating that new box art. Knowing there were several Aero Commanders based at Zahns Airport just 15 miles east of Aurora's factory, Mort simply drove down there and took reference photos from which the cover art was made. Zahns was an incredibly busy little world unto itself and will probably be the focus of another video. Since Zahns Airport was physically located just south of the airport for Republic Aviation Corporation, which was busy making aircraft such as the F-105 Thunder Chief, yes, that Republic Aviation, there are more stories than I can get into right now, so back to the box art. Mort made a box art that has become somewhat iconic amongst model builders, especially those with an interest in Aurora kits or general aviation kits. He made a scene showing a flurry of activity as one Aero Commander is departing, another is being refueled, while an affluent couple prepare to go out on a chartered flight as their chauffeur attends to the Rolls Royce. The Green Aero Commander, which was an actual charter plane based at Zahns, sits up front and in your face with the chrome cabin cooling intake staring at you like the eye of Sauron. Unlike many box arts, which live in a world entirely of the artist's making, this one depicts the real airport, complete with the Zahns logo across the front of the hangar in the background. The T-hangars to the right are where the pre-departure hangar scene for the Jimmy Stewart movie The Spirit of St. Louis was filmed. Once the artwork was photographed, printed, and glued onto tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of boxes, to be sold across the globe to kids and model enthusiasts throughout the remainder of the 1960s, my older brother being one of them, but we'll get back to that in a moment. The kit usually retailed for about 63 cents and remained popular, with Mort's artwork no doubt proving very effective in helping sales. 3 years after the artwork was done, a teenaged aviation and art enthusiast named Mike Machat got a job working at Zahns, doing, amongst other things, refueling the very same Aero Commander in the picture. This is going to be important later. Not long after Mike went to work at Zahns, my older brother got one of the Aurora Aero Commander kits. He also got the Beech Super 18, which as I recall was missing an engine, but I digress. Like so many of his other models, once he was done, he pasted the box art to the wall of his bedroom. I used to love going in his bedroom and playing with his models, and by that I mean destroying most of them. But I also loved staring at all of the box art that festooned his abode. I can recall so many of them. The Aurora Cougar, an S2F tracker, the monogram cannon nose B-25 with all the guns blazing, and so many Linwood covers, including that of the BF-109G and my all-time personal favorite, the Revell 1/32nd scale Spitfire Mark I. In the mix was another personal favorite, Mort Kunstler's Aurora Aero Commander, still with that Eye of Sauron nose, staring at me, hypnotizing me, putting me in a trance and saying, "Max, become a pilot, fly Aero Commanders." I so wanted to be a part of that imaginary world, only to learn later that in this case, it was not so imaginary. As time went by and I built countless kits and grew into adulthood, I never really forgot those early years, nor the impact that many of these models and their associated box art had on me. As a kid, shopping for models was always a treat, and perusing the box art was half the fun. My younger brother once compared it to going to the movies. As time and the demands of life pulled me away from model building, all of these memories are seeded into the back of my mind, but they did not fade away there. they simply submerged into my ever-expanding library of experiences, occasionally surfacing in moments of reminiscence. In 1997, I decided to dabble in the model business, and Max's Models was born. Always a hobby, this newfangled thing we called the internet made it possible to share my love of modeling across the globe. I decided to try my hand at a kit model channel, and despite brutally low numbers, I had a good time with it. Then, I bought my first house, and with that solid anchor, I quickly dedicated a room as the model building room and returned to the hobby in force. In 2020, I made a video, linked below, about my 10 favorite box arts, and Mort Kunstler's Air Commander made that list. This was before the channel took off. Through my slightly growing channel, I was introduced to sites such as ScaleMates, Old Model Kits, and the Box Art Den, amongst many others. I made many contacts via this YouTube channel and eventually had an introductory phone call with world-renowned aviation artist Mike Machat. The same Mike Machat who'd been that young kid who had pumped fuel at Zahns Airport. Mike became a well-known aviation artist and now runs the Celebrating Aviation with Mike Machat YouTube channel. Mike had studied under Jack Linwood, who painted some of my favorite box art, including my number one, the aforementioned Revell Spitfire. Over time, through many chats, there were several revelations, including our connection through Mort's artwork. As a kid, I had stared at awe at the artwork that essentially showed a part of Mike's real life. Our mutual connection to kit model box art and our later meeting in person was not the full connection of the Great Circle, for the Great Styrene River had more in store for us. Since Mike had made his career in the art industry, he knew pretty much everyone, including his own inspirations such as George Akimoto, Joe Cotula, and the aforementioned Jack Linwood. He also knew many of the very colorful people in aviation, from the grassroots folks at Zahns to test pilots and astronauts at Edwards Air Force Base and NASA, and one of the most colorful guys in aviation art, Craig Cadera. Through his many connections, Mike made it possible for me to acquire many comprehensives or comps, essentially small-scale test paintings of proposed box art by both Jack Linwood and Richard Cashady. Sadly, they were only available because Craig had passed away, but that is yet another reason they have all been in a place of honor in my pilot room ever since. As much of a eureka event as the comps were for me, the real holy grail was yet to come. Mike made it possible for me to acquire Mort Kunstler's original artwork for the Aurora Era Commander. To say I was astonished would be to undersell the point. For once, my loquaciousness was paused as I sat stunned by the opportunity. Of course, I accepted the offer as graciously as I could while trying to remember my first name. Arrangements were made, and some weeks later I hand-carried the artwork from Los Angeles to Florida via New York, which entails one more interesting tidbit. As I mentioned, Zahns Airport, prior to its closing, had been right off the south end of what is now Republic Airport. As an airline pilot who frequently flies into JFK, we often fly right over Republic Airport when landing on runway 22 left. On this trip, we passed right over the former Zahns Airport in a plane crewed by a pilot who, as a kid, had marveled at the artwork done of that airport, received with the help of an artist who had worked at that airport and happened to know how that art could be acquired, while carrying said artwork secured safely in the cockpit. And now, the great Box Art River has seen fit to allow this hallowed bit of history to reside as a centerpiece of my home. The circle is complete.